Formerly,
Dee from Grief to Relief Show. So
Heidi.
we found relief. Now we're the Rise Above.
That's right. Okay, so Heidi, do we have any announcements?
Well, we
Anything
just
from
want
the
to thank
sponsors?
Frank Scandor III, President of Frank's European Service. He's our sponsor of the Rise Above show. And Jay Young from City Athletic. He's also one of our sponsors for our show.
All right, so today we wanted to talk about aliveness and vitality. We're going to try to stay away from the politics this week. Although it could come up, you never know.
No politics this week.
Yeah, it's been another interesting week, so to speak. So it might be strange to start with, right? Like a show about aliveness. Okay, like we're alive, big deal. But that's not really what I'm talking about. Just because you have a heartbeat and you breathe doesn't mean that you are living a life where you are actually alive and vital. So I want to go over the definition of vitality. So a vital person's spirit and aliveness are expressed in personal productivity and activity, as well as inspiring others in a positive way. So in other words, if you are energized, that's not necessarily vital or vitality. In other words, you can be energized in a very negative, angry way. And there's plenty of
Or
that
you can be
around.
energized in a very fake way where you're really not doing anything for anybody other than, because I see that at the gym a lot. Girls will bounce around, they're like animated and they're all, hey, 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 and their boobs are going around and they're acting crazy and they don't do anything for another human being. So, you would look at, you could look at them and go, God, that she has a lot of vitality, but it doesn't go much past that. So I guess we were kind of talking.
That's great that you said that.
Because you could be negative, you could be a negative vitality and you can also be a positive vitality, but the vitality stops there. It's like the buck stops there.
Right. So vital in terms of the prefix meaning like important, vitally important. So the difference too, and I love that you said that because I was going to forget that, is that you can't have vitality just by having a cup of coffee in the morning and being, energized with caffeine. That has nothing to do with vitality because like you said, you're just waking yourself up.
Right.
But it doesn't have anything to do with being a productive human being. So part of being alive and being vital is to have that connection with other human beings and being able to inspire them just by your presence alone.
In an authentic way.
Right.
Not here I am, vitality, look at me. That it's got to be an authentic shared experience that you're vital and you're trying to be.
Now, hopefully you can tell the difference. The problem, I was doing a lot of reading, and one of the things that's going to come up, we should do a show on this, is the Kanye West effect. In other words, you just brag about how great you are, and in today's social media world, people sit there and they go, wow, that's awesome. And they think you're inspiring, but yet you haven't said anything.
Well, and the chances are, too, that most of the people that do that have not really done anything for another person. They're kind of self-serving, and again, social media today is about that. It's about, they call it branding. That's the word they use today. I have to brand myself. So what they do is they put their name out there, and they keep shooting pictures out, and they keep writing quotes, and they've already proven, social media is 90% visualization. So the more a person sees your face, the more they see, the more it sticks in their brain. That's why politics, not that we want to talk politics, but people that do the commercials now, the more you flash somebody's name and you keep flashing it, the more the brain absorbs it. And even if people walk into a voting booth and they don't know what they're doing or who they're voting for, the names that they've seen last that flash the loudest, generally that's what they remember and they recall. So, and that's what social media has become.
That's true.
It's a brand.
And that's part of what we're talking about too, about being alive. Like those people that fall prey to that, they're not really conscious beings, okay? They have a heartbeat, but they're not conscious. It's like if I told people enough times that what you're wearing today is the color purple, and I say it enough times, there's people out there that will believe that. And I go, yeah, well, it must be, because he said it a lot of times. He wouldn't lie. And even if he did, I don't care.
But people do lie, and we know they do, because even, when you talk to people, I was talking to somebody today about their diet, and just a simple thing like that, it was kind of a lie. And I said, why would somebody tell you that? And I know somebody couldn't make that up. I mean, you wouldn't make that up and then repeat it in a way where you believed it. If it, so people lie too.
Oh, self-interest.
Right.
So again, that has nothing to do with vitality. So we want to get to the real essence of it. Now, this sounds so obvious, right? Like, when we're born, that's our birthright, is to be alive. When you look at a baby, they're smiling, they're laughing, they're engaging with the world. They have their, their
Kicking
arms,
their
they're
feet.
kicking their legs, their arms are open.
Life is good.
That is the essence of it. So part of it is you're born totally alive, right? You're totally in wonderment of the world. Then you allow yourself to shut the world down and become angry and bitter, and then you start defining yourself by your suffering rather than all the cool things that you've been through. You define yourself by the negatives of the bad things instead of all the great things. I had a conversation just this morning, actually. We were talking about it. It's like, well, if you have a lot of suffering, if you have a lot of negativity in your life, right, and you go, well, I've had a lot of losses. Well, okay, great. But in order to have a loss, you had to have something to have lost. So right away you're defining yourself by the negative. But just the way the world works is that in the end you end up losing everything. So where is the gratitude for what we have? Like a child has that. They live in the moment all the time, and they love everything that they have. It's only until we get older we start to lose all this. So let me start right from the very, very beginning, just to tell you how lucky you are. I'm lucky. John's lucky. The chance of being born is so slim that they almost can't even figure out the number. I was looking this stuff up. Just to be born healthy is something like a 1 out of 400 trillion chance. So everybody who is born is an absolute, with all the millions of sperm, and not all of them make, right? The whole thing. So it's about a 1 in 400 trillion chance. You have more chance of being hit by lightning like 15 times as a human being on the earth and living through it which never happens, than if you do of being born. So right there, if you think, wow, my life is terrible, my life is bad, I don't even know why I'm here. First of all, let's say something. You are an absolutely biological, medical, and just a miracle right there. Just the fact that you're born, and just the fact that if you allow negativity into your life and you're not who you want to be, that's a crime in itself. Because being born is the most amazingly hard thing you will ever have to do. Everything else is easy. It's funny, somebody go, well, I'm not sure if I want to get married because there's a 50% chance I'll be divorced. Well, there's also a 50% chance you'll stay married.
True.
And that number 50% is incredibly high compared to the 1 out of 400 trillion chance you even had to being born in the first place. So somewhere along the line, we just lose this awesomeness of being alive. What do you think?
Well, you do. As you grow up, you kind of you have to grow up. It's like I see these kids and they come in, I said, you're an adult a lot longer than you are a kid. So enjoy, the frivolous times in your life where you can kind of just be in the moment. Because I think what happens is people just, life takes over, responsibility takes over, deadlines take over, pressures, and you just start to live a life full of pressure and deadlines, and you forget to enjoy the little things. And it's not until, usually in most people's life, something major happens to them or to them, and then they realize, I'm really not enjoying my life very much. I'm not enjoying the little moments that, I have during the day. And, I just think that, and that's our culture. Our culture is just bred on negativity and, chasing the almighty dollar and about materialistic stuff. And, people...
I hear what you're saying. And I think most people would agree with that. But I've been doing a lot of thinking, too, about you take a child, right? And we always say, well, when you get older, you have all these extra responsibilities. And so it beats down on us. But my question is always, like, who sucked the life out of us, and who allowed our lives to be sucked out of it?
You do,
right?
Because when you choose, you don't set boundaries. You burn out. You got to make more money. You got to make more friends. You have to do more. Give more, and then at some point, you usually look at yourself and go, "What am I doing?" I've gone through that on and off in my life with my stuff. Why am I doing this? Am I doing it because I have to make other people happy, or am I doing it because it makes me happy? Am I doing it because I can make money from it. What is the ulterior, what is my motive behind my goodness or my giving? And I've had to put the brakes on sometimes, because when it becomes more about maybe winning people over, making people like me, then it doesn't have the same authenticity,
Right.
To when you're doing it. One example I have about with mine is doing hair. I remember being young and, always being infatuated with, I used to look at dolls. I used to love my dolls, and I collect them, and I'd stare at their faces, and I would draw their little, eyes and their hair. I used to make the hair designs on a piece of paper, and that's one of the reasons I decided to get into hairstyling, because I went into my first salon, and all the women struck me as being very pretty. Every single hairstylist that was in there was very attractive. They did wear makeup. Their hair was done. I was brought up in an environment where everybody was very plain, frumpy, almost like, if you wear makeup, you're kind of, they used to say girls that wear makeup are, slutty. So, you kind of grew up around women that really just looked, okay. I mean, I'm not saying they were ugly.
So they're trying to hold you down. They
right.
want you to look
and I
good.
walked into my salon. I was like, God, I love the smell of this place. That was the first thing that hit me, was the smells, the hairspray smells and all that.
So that made you feel alive.
Yeah, and then I remember looking at all these pretty girls, women, and I went, God, these women are so pretty, and their heels, and, then I see their clients in their chair, and the clients are smiling, and everybody's just happy, whatever. And I just remember saying, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. And, I to this day, I still love it, but I have to catch myself sometimes when I'm doing hair, because people do have a tendency, as a hairstylist, in some of the years, my creativity has been drained from me, because I start to become like people's friend too much, or a therapist too much, and I have to put this brakes on and say, wait a minute, I'm in this business for making people beautiful. It's in making them feel good when they come in and they leave in a people would say a superficial way. But I have to remember that that's where my art is. That's where my heart is, and the creativity of doing hair and doing my craft. And so I've had to put the brakes on over the years and say, wait a minute, you're doing too much. You're getting dragged down by people's problems. So then I've had to redirect my conversation away from, I don't want to talk about your negativity. Let's talk about, how would you like your hair today? What color would you like? Show me some pictures. And when I have to force myself to get back into feeling vital about what I'm doing, because then it starts to become a drag.
So those are good points you make, because when you do that, you're saying that, I mean, not to be mean, but I'm saying you have allowed some outside forces to infect you. Like, I like to call those termites, right? Like, we're born totally like, yes, I am the winner of a 400 trillion chance I won. And then you look at the world and it's like, it's amazing. I used to be able to play with these I used to start little ant wars between the red ants and the black ants. And I can do that for like 10 hours and just be mesmerized by it and figure, like, just so cool. I loved everything about the world. And then when you start allowing other things like little termites inside you to start chewing away at your creativity, right?
You can
and your
see
aliveness.
that. You can see that in the young stylists. Like, we have 175 people in our salon, and most people that are hairstylists, they're caretakers. They're very loving, caring people, and they're very artsy. They're very creative, and I always said, we're the flowers of the planet. We are the pretty people, and we're the ones that want to make people happy, and we want to be involved. But when you see young stylists vitality, it shines through, because they're excited about their craft. They're excited to get in there and let me get in there and play with your hair. Let me get in there and, let's put purple in your hair. Let's put pink in your hair. I just want to do this.
Let's try.
You look at the older stylists. You look at I won't say older, we'll say the seasoned stylists that have been behind the chair 25 plus years. You can see the exhaustion sometimes. You can see the burnout. You can see it. You can see the difference. And then the same thing in the gym. All right, we'll bring the gym into it. You see the young trainers that come in. They're excited. They got people standing on their head, box jumping, running circles, doing all kinds of craziness that, you look at and you go, what is that? But it doesn't matter what it is. It's that they're so excited about what they're doing, and they're motivated and excited. You look around at the older trainers, and you can see the older trainers have the same here we go again, another rep, another set with some of these trainers.
Yeah.
And
Desensitized.
so you can see it in every aspect of a creative business, a people type business where you're working with people, you know, and you see it too. You see the young, and this is something I've observed because I'm a people watcher. The young stylists are really, or the young trainers, young stylists, they're really engaged in the craft of what they're doing. They're doing reps, they're doing sets, they're doing things. You look at the older hairstylists, they're talking about the husband who just cheated on his wife. You look at the old trainer who's counseling his client. They're talking. There's no training. There's a lot of back and forth. And I'm sure in your job too, when you started training, when you were a young trainer, you were like, let's go, let's get, you know, and now that you've become a little more evolved, you become more of a talking trainer.
That's,
and you, I
yeah,
mean,
that's
you
what
train.
happens. Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
you do train. I'm not putting your. I'm not. That's not a negative. I'm just saying that when you talk about vitality, you can see the difference if you walk through the gym and you go young trainer, old trainer. You walk through a salon, young stylist, seasoned stylist. There's a big difference in the maturity because of the experiences that the oldest stylist has gone through.
Right.
And
I think there's an experience thing there too. Like when people come in, they don't just want to do straight training a lot of times. Because when I started off, I'm 22 years old. I had nothing in common with a 40-year-old woman who was divorced and had 3 kids. And they'd want to talk a little bit about that. And I'm like, cool, next set. And that's why I wasn't able to really retain a clientele.
Yeah.
So you're able to middle it a little bit better. But I definitely know what you're saying. Like, people start to lose their creativity. But we're creative people. Imagine a person who's not incredibly creative to start with. You know, they have, let's say, a good job, but it's not on the creative side. What I noticed is, because when I was a kid, it was amazing. Like, I lived on Long Island, about not very far from the Long Island Railroad. Most of the jobs were in New York City. So you could see these, mostly men, they would wear the same navy blue suits with the white shirt. And they would have that same leather bag, or whatever they called it. And they would all walk the same, like robots, to the train station. And it was, oh God, is that going to be my future? You know, just this sleepwalking, dead, zombie-like human being, no smiles, just going, punching in at a clock, getting back on the train, falling asleep, coming home. I was like, I don't want any part of that. And I see it around all the time now. People don't live alive. They're not like, yes, I'm alive today. Like, what else can I get involved in today? They just sleepwalk, and it's kind of sad. You know, I remember what you were saying before, I think is interesting too. I think we make excuses for ourselves, though. When I say that, I mean me too. Like, part of the excuses will say, well, a child has all this wonderment because they don't have a job. They don't have responsibilities. They don't really have to please people like we do. I think that's all BS, though. You know, because when you look at it, let's say if I was to tell an adult and say, okay, I'm going to put you in a situation where you weigh about 30 pounds. Just that alone puts you at a disadvantage to where everybody who wanted to could abuse you if they felt like it. You are small. You are weak. You're also dependent upon everybody to do everything for you. You can't go out and get a sandwich if you want. You can't go driving down the street and get yourself a drink. You can't do anything. No, but that's what I'm saying.
I used to make myself salami sandwiches. When you said you couldn't make a sandwich, I used to make my own sandwich.
Okay, yeah,
we
did that too. But for the most part, when you're a child, think about it. If you had to do it over again, if somebody told you, okay, I'm going to take away all of your faculties, okay, and then we're going to start you over again. Because the fact is, a child doesn't even have language. So let's start with that. They can't communicate. They have no language. If you told a kid, listen, okay, look at all those letters. You're going to have to learn the alphabet. And then you're going to have to put them all together. You have to make words. Then you're going to have to make sentences. Then you're going to have to communicate verbally. You have to learn how to write. You'd be like, oh my God, that's way too much. So when we say the kids don't have responsibility, they have to learn like multiple times more than an adult ever will. Because most adults can live like zombies because you're not really learning anything new. You punch a clock, you go to work, you sit there, you sleep, whatever you do, even if you have an important job, pretty much if you do the same thing for 30 years, 8 hours a day, you can sleepwalk through your job. There's not a lot of learning to go on compared to what a kid has to go through. And think about it in terms of socially. Like you and I, we can do our okay.
Well, again, I keep thinking about when you're talking about kids, and I think about, like, I raised a baby.
Yeah.
And I don't remember I don't remember how I felt and how I remember events in my life when I was a child and looking back, but I can't remember those feelings. I can't bring them up, to know how I felt. I can just visualize me in situations as a kid. And I know when you're raising a child, they're exactly what you say. They're vibrant, they're excited, everything's a new experience, and then you relive that. One of the vibrant parts of my life was one of them was when I went to beauty school and I became a stylist. That was really an exciting time for me. And then I remember having my daughter, and I said, this is another exciting time in my life because I get to live vicariously again through her. I get to go watch the Disney movies. I get to climb a ladder. I get to go down the slide. I get to roll around in the snow, and I get to make little igloos because, we were back east. And I got to do all these fun things again as a child that maybe I didn't experience because, again, our parents, I don't know about your mom and dad, but I know it was very limited when I was growing up. But I remember having a little bit more than my parents had and being able to experience. And I just remember, the joy I had all the time when there was the little birthday parties and, getting home after work and reading her a book and, just a little excitement they get out of a little picture. And then you look at the picture as an adult and you go, oh, okay, I kind of get it now why that would, get a little kid excited because the colors are bright and it's like a favorite little horse or something, and then as you get older, I think it's a kind of a conformity that we get into. Again, we just get so wrapped up in our jobs and, you have to pay bills that you forget that.
So I totally agree with you because what I'm trying to say is, although, again, this goes against the grain, but part of our show, we always say we challenge the herd mentality. I don't care if people, I am responsible for the message given. I am not responsible for the message, how it's received. Right. If you think it's garbage and you think it's stupid, that's cool. You can live your life sad, depressed, bitter. You can do that. But we're giving you ideas not to. And I just think there's no reason in the world why we can't be somewhat childish in the way we look at the world every day. Honestly, when I come in here, right? I know this is our third time here, but either way, my heart races. I get nervous before I come in. And to me, it's so exciting because when I was a kid, my mom bought me this little Panasonic radio. And I used to listen to the voices on there. And I did listen to talk radio here and there, even things I didn't care about. I don't know, they would talk about the stock market. But I didn't care because it was a voice. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I even listened to baseball on the radio, which I don't like baseball much. But it's just the excitement of that. And I still get like that. I still do. When I walk into the gym, to me, it's the most amazing thing because I go there. It's dark. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning, right? And it's dark already. It's outside. And when I look at that big space with all this equipment, it is like the most amazing thing to me. I still get the hairs on the back of my neck go up because you literally can change your life, even if on the back of your
John,
neck.
where's your hair? Where's your hair?
But it's so exciting
Mine?
to me
What?
that. It's never actually changed for me because I know that inside those four walls there's equipment that I can use and I can use it myself with my own power and strength to change my life, who I am, what I do. And it's just so amazing to me. I just never get tired of it. So to me, all this stuff about we have so much responsibility that we can't enjoy the small things in life or the big things, I think is us giving up.
Well,
and
I
would
think
never want to give
I think
up.
you have to schedule joy.
That's true too.
I think that you have to know to put the brakes on, and I think you need to just say, I need to schedule joy for myself. I need to. One of the things that when I filled out one of my journal things that, it asked you all these questions about yourself, when I got done with it, it's one of the things that I have neglected is my creativity as far as artsy stuff. And that was another thing when I had Ava when she was small. We were always making clothes. We were always making little picture things and decorating and using little sparkles and that kind of stuff. So I was able to, and beadery. We used to make some jewelry. My Ava and I would go to jewelry classes and we learned how to make necklaces again. I mean, I did that when I was younger, but this was more bead stuff. And I remember the joy I got to making stuff and using my hands that way. And I haven't done that in a long time. And I was like, well, maybe I need to do that now. You do. I'm doing hair, which is making money for me, and it's creativity. But there's this other part where you have to check out,
Right.
and then you have to come over here to the left side of the brain, and you have to use that part that makes you creative with working with your
And
hands.
sometimes
and
when you attach monetary rewards to it, it kind of takes away some of the fun, right?
Right.
Because you got to be there at a certain time, you have to create, and it could be the best thing ever. But if somebody
Yeah.
doesn't want to pay for it, all of a sudden it's
Or they don't like it.
It's rendered useless. When in actuality, it's not useless. It's just that individual person didn't like it. One of the things I wanted to get on too about the thing with young people, because I think they get kind of not a fair shake on things too. Like as adults, many places will not allow you to date somebody, or they frown on you dating somebody in the same company for obvious reasons, right? Like most relationships are going to break up, right? So there's going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's going to be a problem.
And then there's going to be an issue when you both come to work in the same place. But here's the craziness of that. You're adults. Why can't you handle your emotional reactions to another human being? Because think about this, right? Like we want to say that we're adults and we have all these, we're elevated, we're smarter, right? But we have all these other things we have to worry about in life. Think about a kid, right? You're in high school. You're in 11th grade. You date somebody. Who are you going to date? There's no rule saying you can't date somebody from the same high school. That you're supposed to. So the rules that they have when we're adults make us that we're less than children. Because if you're in 11th grade and you're in science class and you date that girl or that boy in that class, you're not going to last out the end of the year. I can almost guarantee you that. So what you're going to have is multiple people that we're dating, and then they have to go back into the same classes together. They have to go back into the same high school together. Some of these people are going to have sex for the very first time. And what's going to happen is it's going to be a big emotional issue. But you know what? They deal with it. So they have many more difficult things to deal with than adults do when you really get down to it.
Well, they deal with it, but then not to contradict what you're saying, but they deal with it. But do they deal with it? Because when you think about it, when you think about young people now with the drugs and the suicide and all that, and then how they react as adults coming out of some of these situations, I get what you're saying, that you're in a situation where you're forced to deal with it. You see
Right.
the guy that you dated, you see the girl that you dated, there was somebody else, and yeah, you deal with it because you don't really have a choice but to deal with it. But my thing is are they really dealing with it, or is it some residual crap that will go on later in life that they'll carry? We carry baggage in our lives now.
Yeah, we do. We carry stuff. You'll be able
but
to
as
have
adults,
those stories.
you say,
for
well,
sure.
I know how that feels, and as adults, we say, well, we don't want to tolerate that in the workplace. We've had to put up with that in school. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Right, but think about that,
when
though.
you say they handle it, are they really handling their stuff? Because when you think about the amount of adults that are addicts, the amount of adults that do a lot of destructive things to themselves and to others, are they really handling the situation?
Yeah,
And that could be talk, for another time. But that would be one point I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm saying that we are put in a situation that if you don't have the proper coping. I mean, I knew a girl that something bad happened, when we were in school, and she didn't deal with it.
No, some people don't.
And
Some people
it
don't.
was a really difficult thing for her. So she didn't deal with it. Her family didn't deal with it. Nobody could deal with it because it was such a horrendous thing.
But think of it like this, though, too. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you because there's middle ground. There's always shades of gray. I'm always wearing shades of gray. But look at it like this, though. You have less coping skills when you're young, right? Just by time. As you get older, you're more experienced, you should have more coping skills. The life that is thrown onto young people is so massive compared to the amount of coping skills that they have. in terms of dating, in terms of breaking up, in terms of breaking up with the person and seeing him in the same class, in terms of maybe some guy being a jerk and being a little abusive, the guy's talking about that girl, and now we have gossip in a classroom, gossip in the whole school. So it goes on and on and on. How about the guys who try to make a football team? They're not good enough. They get cut. Now they feel like losers. It goes on and on and on and on. You can't hide anything in a high school. When you're an adult and somebody fires you, you and maybe two of your friends notice and your family notices, but it's not like a public thing. It's not like 2,000 people in your school knew that you didn't graduate, right? So what I'm saying is, there's middle grounds, but what I'm trying to say is that I don't think it's an excuse for older people or adults to say, I have too much responsibility, so I now abdicate all my responsibility to have a beautiful, loving, caring life that I feel alive and vital. You can't do that, because actually the pressure on you as an adult is way less than when you were when you were a child. When you're a child, you can't even get away from the person who abused you. You can't even get away from that girl that broke up with you. You're going to see her in class. And then you're going to date somebody that she dated. And then you're going to date somebody who dated, and who dated. You get what I'm saying? It's this whole thing. You really have to be pretty psychologically strong to get through high school. And then they have their little cliques, that kind of thing. And they will literally push you away. There are so many things that young people have to deal with that I think it's just, I think our life in some ways gets much easier when we get older.
Well, I think it gets easier as you get older because you can hide easier.
What's
when
that?
when you develop skills as an adult to hide who you are.
Yes, and you can hide where you live.
And as a child, they're so authentic, and what do they say? The innocence of a child. They're so real that they haven't learned to be fake. They haven't learned to cover up their innocence. They've learned to, what I'm saying, as adults.
No, I love that.
They learn how to hide. And if a kid comes to you, they usually say that under the age of 9, especially with sexual abuse and stuff, they always say if a kid comes to you about the age of 9 and under and they tell you that, believe it, because they have not developed, well, maybe not, I think 9 is pushing, I think it was 6. If it's a young kid, that they haven't developed those skills yet to know how to lie and how to hide and how to manipulate. It's usually the truth.
All right, so I can actually make a play to say that kids are actually more pure than adults.
They are.
I mean, that's just the thing. And they have to handle more stuff. I mean, I was a sickly kid, and here's the thing too. There's a meme that I have. I don't know, we could put it up during the show maybe, but it's about like what makes somebody happy. And it's like, what makes you happy? It's what you're focusing on, right? And it's like this guy with a dog. And the guy is sitting there in a peaceful, serene place with his dog. Beautiful. But he's thinking about maybe getting on a plane. He's thinking about A, B, C, and D. All these other things that mean absolutely nothing in the moment. But the dog is happy because the dog, you can see what the dog is thinking. He's thinking about, I'm hanging out with my human friend, having a good time. So it depends on what you want to focus on. As adults, we give all these crazy excuses of, I don't feel alive because of this. I don't feel vital because of this. And really, most of it is their own fault. It's their own doing.
Because you give power to everything. You give power away to everything.
Yeah, you give it away. So I want to play a song. This song, listen, it's not my favorite style song, to be honest with you. You know what? But it says everything that I want to say. And it's just so fun. And the video itself really lends itself to what we're talking about, is that, listen, you're born to be alive. You need to have fun. Just go out and have a good time and stop making excuses why you're not having a good time. Focus on the good. So we'll be right back after the song. It's called
Born to be Alive.
Born to be Alive. And I am Joe Peroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini.
What's our call letters again?
www.dbtv.com.
Perfect.
Woohoo! Yay!
And this is the Rise Above show, formerly
The From Grief to Relief show.
And we have the book up here. And by the way, I still am ready, willing, and able to give away a free book to anyone who's willing to say, they have to be Republican first though, that the number 18,000 is higher than 8,000. That's my only political thing of the day, which really means that it's just a mathematical figure. Right?
Okay.
If you heard anything into that other than what I said, that's
on you.
That's on them. So we are talking about aliveness today and vitality, and basically why we lose it, because most things where you'll read on it is like, how do you get it? And I'm like, well, that's good. You know, we need to talk about that. How do you get it? But my thing is why did you lose it? Because we're born with it, right? So if we can start now, and starting the young generation of always being in wonderment of what's around them. And we could start now with all these great things. You know, it's like we drive here. You know, that's incredible in itself. You know, like...
I think having a phone's incredible, like a cell phone.
Yeah.
Where you can go on the cell and you can look things up and Google things and get information like right away.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, we have to...
Like I could be really smart, like all of a
forever.
sudden, you know.
So speaking of, it's funny you said, speaking of the library, I used to read, I still do, but I used to spend a lot of my time at the library reading. And I just loved it because you could put yourself in any world you want. And to me, probably one of my favorite books is by Jack London, and it's called Call of the Wild. And to me, that means a lot about being alive and being vital. If you don't know it, it's about, I'm not going to go through the whole story, but really it's an existential book, right? And it talks about the art of becoming. Mm-hmm. But he does it through the eyes of a dog. Now, this dog is a domesticated animal. He has a family. But he gets stolen. He ends up being brought to Alaska during the gold rush. And the dog is abused. He's out in the wild. And it kind of goes like this. But here's the point that I'm trying to say. In order for him to flourish in that environment, he had to change. He had to be something different than what he was. Mm-hmm. So the book goes on to show you how this domesticated, nice animal that it can play with children has to be this vicious beast that can handle pulling a sled and killing other dogs and things like this, wolves, I should say. And it's just an amazing book. And it talks about how he starts to slowly make his teeth sharper. His claws become sharper. His eyes become more focused on the things that really need to be done in order to survive. Mm-hmm. His temperament changes. He becomes better at reading of who and what's out there and what's good and what's bad. And how do I look at this in terms of aliveness? It's that people sleepwalk through their life and they go, well, the big question is, okay, you were born. Great. That's a big day in your life. The second biggest day in your life is when you find out why. Why were you born? And if you ask somebody, most people don't know. If you say, who are you? What are your strengths? What do you like? Why are you here? What do you contribute to society? Most people don't even know the answers to that. They haven't asked. So in Call of the Wild, it's this thing of he becomes what he needs to be, because he knows he wants to survive in that environment. And there's a part in it where Jack London talks about Buck, the dog, and he says he has no superfluous tissue. I love that. And really what that is he has no fat. He has nothing around.
Lean.
He's lean. But not just lean in terms of muscularity. In other words, lean in terms of, does what he has on him or with him or around him, does it serve a purpose or not a purpose? And if it doesn't serve a purpose, you get rid of it. Now, I talk to people all the time, right? And they carry their guilt, they carry their shame, they carry, oh, I'm not good enough because somebody in first grade told me I wasn't good. I couldn't read a word off the chalkboard when I was in sixth grade, so I don't know how to, I can't read, I can't write. They carry this negativity, but what does it serve? So if you want to get better in the world, we have to drop those things. That's superfluous tissue. It's like fat on the body. We don't need it. You can drop it anytime you want. It's a choice. then we could start to get everything else razor sharp. If you want to go back to school, guess what? You're going to have to sign up for school. That's,
Right.
I mean, it sounds so simple, but that's what you have to do. And that's what keeps you vital. That's what keeps you alive. Knowing who you are, what you want you want to do, get the target, aim for the target, and go for the target. And that's Call of the Wild has all of that in it. So what do you think?
Well, I think everything you said is true. But some people don't know how to do that.
How did you do it?
How did I do it? I just made my mind up I was going to do it.
Okay.
And I
Well,
didn't-
let's take it from this. You
Like, what do what?
the
What do
first
mean,
time
how
you
do I
walked
do
into a
what?
hair salon, you felt what?
When I was working, or the first time I walked into one, it smelled good, and I liked the way it looked, and I wanted to be part of that culture.
And how old were you?
Oh, I was like 13.
Okay.
12,
So
13,
you
something
started
like
to develop this thing that you did what? Did you want to help people? You wanted to make people pretty?
I just want to make people pretty. I don't know if I was going to be helping people, but I do that on a very superficial level. Doing hair and doing makeup and wearing heels and looking pretty was my goal. I didn't realize, though, getting into it,
Right.
that there was more to doing hair than just doing hair. It was
Exactly.
Once I got into it, that's when I realized, because I remember mentoring under Dino, who was my mentor for a few years, and I was like, God, what is wrong with this guy? He's so burned out. I can remember he was so burned out, and he was always grumbling about the workers, and then I'm all excited about my new profession. But he said to me, he goes, you got to have 90% personality, and the other part is going to be your skill. And he said, because I'm going to tell you something. He said, we only do this much hair, and we do a lot of listening, and we do a lot of therapy with clients. And I just remember thinking, I don't want to do therapy with people. I want to do hair. But I realized later into it that for me to retain a clientele, I had to not only do good hair and service, but I also had to be a good listener. Because people came to me because of my personality also. They just didn't come to me because I was the guru in hair. Because I have worked with people that were gurus in hair, and I still do. They're amazing. But they keep a client about 3 visits, and that's it. Because the client doesn't feel cared about. They feel like all they are is handing their money over to somebody. You don't really... So it's like finding that fine line of being creative.
Yeah, people want a connection.
Giving them a service, having a conversation, but the healthy detachment, I think, is, something I still work on. I'm 51, and I've been doing hair since I'm 22, and I still, that's still a thing for me, is just the healthy detachment part of not letting the weight of people, because another thing we do in hair, and you do this in training, is you change your hat. Every time a client comes in, you might have a client that's young and bubbly and crazy, and they're telling you about their Saturday night out on the strip, and all you do is laugh your head off because you're like, these kids are crazy. And then you get the next client that comes in that's having problems with their kids. Then the client after that comes in, she found out her husband just cheated on her, so then you change your hat for that, because you're not going to be doing that client's hair laughing your head off and life is great when she's sitting there crying her eyeballs out while you're doing her hair. So I've just learned to kind of try to get away from the subject sometimes.
Right. But you can handle it in the moment.
I handle it
So in other words,
but
when you wanted to be, take it to when you're 13, you didn't realize that you had to do so much extra work, psychologically,
but I didn't
too,
have,
to be a
right, and I
hairdresser.
didn't realize that then, but I didn't even realize it in the beginning of doing hair, that was part of my job. It was about 5 years into my career, that I realized, if I want to make money, I've got to figure out a way to not make this just a business thing, because I was all about hair, talking about products, but I didn't retain clients well. And when I started to look at it from another angle and said, well, I am in a service business, I have to be me, and part of me was being me, but I was around people that said, that had been in the business a while, that don't get too sensitive, don't get too involved with your clients. So I tried to keep that part of it out of there, but for me it didn't work. But now it's learning to be involved but not be involved.
Right.
Care but don't care. And that's difficult.
Well, that healthy detachment. But I like where you're going, right? Because you started, you made mistakes. Now, see, here's where the problem is, right? For a lot of people, if you don't know who you are and what you want, any port looks good, right? You just stop off anywhere. But if you have a goal, and your goal was to be good at hairdressing, you took your mistakes, but then you sat in there. and you tried and you learned and you kept banging away until you started figuring
Well,
it out.
and I just said this to you the other day, but one thing I don't give myself credit for either is that I am a businesswoman, and I have built a clientele, and I've kept clients, I've made money, I am self-sufficient, and then I started another business. We're doing the radio show.
Oh, yeah.
Then I started another business, wellness coaching for women and men, and I'm successful at that too. So, you kind of, as you go through life, you kind of let people drag you down or try to bring you down.
You
But
sometimes allow
you
that,
allow it,
but you don't need to do that.
But you don't realize it until you're away from it, and you say, "Oh, I have accomplished some things in my life," although people want to say I haven't.
But look at the guts that it takes, right? Like I'm saying, like go back to the call of the wild. Like it's kind of like when you know what you want to do, it's in there. You just have to go back and just look for it like a child again and go, hold it. I've always been there. Now allow it to come out. But don't allow negativity to stop you. So I've made a lot of mistakes. You've made mistakes. You keep going, you correct, and you keep moving on. The radio thing's a good thing because when we first started, we were like the worst station on the air. I think there was like 40 shows at the time.
Yeah, we were 40.
Yeah, we were 40. And I was, but here's my mindset at the time. I was actually happy.
You wanted to be Howard Stern.
You know why I was
my
happy,
God.
though?
He's like, let's talk nasty stuff. Let's talk caca. And
But
I'm
you
like,
didn't ask me why I felt
What?
happy.
Why?
Because I did not feel like I was a radio person. I was a bodybuilder. So to me, it was like, okay, I didn't identify yet. So it was okay. So every time we went up the ladder a little bit, it was like, wow, that's a gift, that's a gift, that's a gift. So I was happy. I was alive. And then we always ended up like in the top 5 after a while. And I was like, really? How'd that happen? And it's really because you're willing to work hard and keep going and not worry
And you're allowed
about
to.
the stuff.
You're allowed to identify yourself as more than one thing.
Right.
And that's what keeps you vital too. I think when you do one thing or you think that's all you can do, that's when people get bored and
Yeah.
stagnant and unhappy. Step outside the box a little bit. If there's
Yeah.
something that you've wanted to try to do and you're afraid to do it, or you think you're limited because people tell you try it, because you'd be surprised
You're starting
how
over.
fulfilling that is.
Yeah, starting over with things all the time is a great way to stay alive, I think. The other thing I wanted to get to is I also have this thing. I was going to write a book on this a long time ago. I was going to call it addition by subtraction. In other words, you can add a lot to your life by taking some things away. And so this is a good question, I think, for you, is that because I personally don't think that you do enough self-care for yourself. You're so worried about everybody else that at the end of a week you might say, well, I've done everything for this person, and that person, but not enough for myself.
That's my job. Well, and here's the thing. If you read about, why we're put here, for me, I said this to you the other night. I've spent my life kind of rebelling, like what my purpose is. Like I've said, I know there's people that care about me. I never want to sound like people don't care about me or my needs, but I think that there's care people, there's caregivers, and we're put on this, I was put here for that.
Right.
So rather than not resent it, I have to go, okay, that's my job. And instead of being angry about it or being burned out about it, give myself enough, things or whatever you want to call it, that I have the kind of strength to be able to help people that maybe they're strong, they just don't know that they are. And I'm there to help facilitate that.
Right.
Because not everybody can do that. And whether it's talking to a client doing their hair and I help them with decision making, or it's a client that I'm working with training, or a friend, a friendship, just to be in their life for, hey, whatever. One of the things was the past weekend when we did the bodybuilding show, and Morgan,
Yes.
your client, she came in, she won the whole show.
And she will be on the show soon.
And she'll be on the show soon. And my client, Amy, one of the things that I realized about me is that it's about being up there. It's about being there,
Present.
being that voice in their ear. So when that other voice comes up and says, you're not good enough, you're, whatever things that we've been led to believe in our lives, I'm the other side of that, of their head going, no, you're this, and rebooting their mind,
Right.
so that they can do what they need to do.
No, I agree, and that's part of having no superfluous tissue, right?
And it's like our
you're
children. We
helping
do that
them
for our
along.
children. If you're a good parent, your child will come and say, I'm scared to death. I don't think I can do this, Mom. I'm not good enough. You're as good as you're going to be. At least go and try.
Right.
Do your best. And that's it. And that's what a parent does. But as we grow up, we forget to do that for our friends and our family and people we care about. We forget to give them that, that little push that they need.
I agree. The other part, though, too, is that when you're doing addition by subtraction, you have every right to draw boundaries with people that are the negative people.
I do, and
in
I
your
fire
ear.
clients all the time. Especially clients if they're dragging on me. I've had to set boundaries with my own child. Because of the things that have gone on, and if I have to, I won't talk to certain people in my family. I have not talked to certain people in my family because they're not good for me.
Right.
I've come a long way,
And that's difficult.
and it's difficult.
I think that's difficult, too. We only have like about a minute or so to go, but we can carry on with this on some other shows, but next week we have a guest. But one of the things that's really big, of somebody will ask me as a therapist or even as a trainer, why do people have so much difficulty changing? And part of it is because the family they come from, right? So every time you try to change to make yourself a little bit better, in some ways you're distancing yourself from your family. Because a lot of times that negativity that's pulling you down, where do you think you grew from? It's your family. So a lot of times that negativity means that you have to keep some good boundaries with your family, because they may be the negative ones that are emotionally holding you down. In order for you to grow, to be what you need to be, sometimes you need to push that in a comfortable place. I'm not saying no contact, like a lot of therapists do, but what I'm saying is you have to be strong enough to be able to say no, that this is the path I need. So addition, in other words, do the things that you need to do to be successful. Like Heidi said, in the beginning it was a little rough for her. She couldn't hold the clientele as much as she would like to have, right? But you made the correct changes. And just so you know, and everybody knows, as a personal trainer, I've been fired from every training job I've ever had when I've worked for somebody else. But I believed in myself, and now I've been in business for like 30 years. So I can get into the ins and outs of that, but it could have destroyed my self-esteem, but it didn't. And I'm glad to say that I am
It's okay
alive.
to be right. It's okay to know that you can think differently, and thinking differently will get you probably where you want to go.
All right,
It's
so-
not to be afraid. Well, if I don't go with the herd mentality, like we always say, I'm not going to be successful.
So are you alive and vital?
I believe so, most days.
Am I?
Yes.
Of course. So I hope everybody else out there is too. And if you're not,
Get
go,
it.
listen
Get it
to our
together.
show, go over it. If you want to contact us, we can help you, and we'll do another show on this too. Thanks for listening. This is the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Peroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini.
Thank you.